I want to talk about naive trust, cynicism, and a more well-founded trust in the context of the split between roughly 70% of human behavior happening through a mixture of sociopathic self-interest and risk management, or the rational reptile, and the 30% of human behavior that is more purely empathic, again, using a rational overview. So the first thing that I want you to notice is that nobody wants to feel bad. And so the continuum between feeling terrible and feeling ecstatic, you could call it the well-being continuum, marks the degree of competency individually and as a species. So a very highly competent individual will create sustainable joy. It's more fun than sustainable misery or unsustainable joy. It's more attractive. So what you can see there is the lower the amount of competence, the more incompetence, the higher the amount of pain. So you have a pain continuum and you have a competence continuum, and they run parallel. Now, the other thing that runs parallel is that the more pain there is, i.e. the more incompetence there is, the more reptilian, the more blood goes to the reptilian brain, and the more people in a painful environment operate like reptiles. So low competency, high pain, high amounts of blood go to the reptilian brain, high degrees of sociopathic behavior. Now, the naive human animal trusts their parents, trusts their government, trusts their lover, trusts themselves, trusts their friends to do the right thing because it is the right thing, or because it's the nice thing or socially acceptable thing, because that would be nice. So here we begin with a state of naive trust. In an environment that is 60-70% incompetent, that is 60 to 70% painful, that is 60 to 70% reptilian, this trust will be broken and be replaced with a new position of cynicism. The world is fucked up. God doesn't exist. If he does, he's an idiot. People will hurt you if you give them half the chance. Don't love more. You'll just be hurt. Blah, 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 right? And all of that is true. It is a position of more accurate, like statistically, you will be betrayed more than you are not if it is in someone's interest to betray you. And if you have not set up countermeasures to deter the betrayal, right? What's the statistics? 60 or 70% of the time, right? So you move from giving loans to people who say they'll pay it back, leaving the door unlocked, trusting your partner when they say that, oh no, they never thought about having an affair, or you're the only person they're thinking about, and blah, blah, blah. And you enter an awareness that 60 to 70% of the time, it is not a good idea to be vulnerable, to trust the community, your government, etc., because 60% of all the laws are more damaging to people than if they didn't exist, right? 60% of anything your government does harms you more than if it didn't exist. 60% of the impact of your parents is cruel and destructive and profoundly disappointing. And 60% of your typical lover, that you choose is, again, going to be narcissistic, absurd, cruel, and in a variety of ways, painfully incompetent. So if you understand that, and understand that what we're dealing with is competence, we are an incredibly incompetent culture. Right? We take people out of life to give them an education to prepare them for life. Right? Who came up with that idea? Right? Now, if you take people out of life and put them in a factory to prepare them for a factory, okay, makes a little bit more sense, right? But we're not aspiring to work in factories anymore, and we're putting people in factories to prepare them for life, which makes no sense. We are profoundly, culturally, and psychically illiterate. We do not objectively compare best practices between cultures and pivot towards best practices. We teach that our way is the best way, regardless of the data. We say that we're scientific, but we're in a cult. Now, cult-programmed individuals have all been brainwashed to ignore large swaths of data that threaten the power structure and the order created and delivered by our cult. The cult is not your friend 60 or 70% of the time, right? But the order that it delivers is, right? We need a certain amount of stability, and we need to know what to expect so that we can tune out large swaths of daily decisions and focus on a few areas that need our attention. So every cult provides this service to its clients of saying, okay, we'll put this bizarre, outdated, often destructive algorithm in place. Hello, how are you? I don't want to know how you are doing. Please don't tell me. I'm fine. I'm not fine, but I know you don't want to know. Good. Let's shake hands because that's what we've always done. Let's say, see you soon, even though we don't want to or have no plan. Let's just do profound stupidity automatically and get through the day. Right? It's driving us insane. It's making us insane, right? How are you? I don't want to know how you are. That's what insanity looks like. But if it's predictable insanity, if I know that you don't really want to do that, and if I know that the smile is fake, if I know all this, then I know my role and I can get through the day and play my part, right? And that's the service every cult provides. Profound stupidity in a predictable fashion. You need to grasp this. Your culture is not your friend. It never was your friend, right? 95% of all cults in human history are absurd, are actively killing their people. There's a 10 times better way of doing things that nobody wants to know about. They want to go through the motions of a mindless cult, and that's what they are doing, because certainty, predictability, and familiarity of the family is more important than sanity, intelligence, or well-being. The well-being of order and stability is more important than the well-being of success, of competence. And so we kill, we martyr, we torment, we ignore, we don't fund our true innovators. Most of the best ideas cost very little money, and great deal of corporate money is spent to squash that and pivot things towards more toxic alternatives. You can look at pharmaceuticals, right? Killing natural remedies that are free or low priced in order to come up with far more expensive drugs with side effects. Let's not form a community of friends and teach the art of friendship. Let's get everyone on anxiety, medication because they have no friends and they don't know how to have a secure attachment. We have profound stupidity at every level of our cult. And at every level of our cult, you will find mindless morons saying, well, let's not rock the boat. Let's not talk about this cruelty in our cult. Let's just turn away. Let's not look too deeply at what Uncle Harry is doing with little Jenny. He's paying the rent. Let's just not look too deeply. We have an intense amount of systemic cruelty. And it's time, if you're ready to grow up, when you're ready to grow up, Dane, to acknowledge the amount of cruelty that is aimed statistically at you and at other members of your cult. And it is not personal, right? It's going for stability over intelligence. Because in the hierarchy of need, the need for certainty, the illusion of control, and protection from the fear of the unknown is greater than the need for pleasure or sanity. Certainty, protection from the unknown, familiarity of the family is a higher need in human beings than the need for sanity or well-being. And so your cult is servicing the need for stability at the expense of sanity, kindness, competency, and well-being in many ways. Your part, like most of the human species throughout most of history, of a fucked up cult that ennobles itself with what a great culture we are. But this is our culture. We have to eat, ice cream and apple pie and get fat because it's our culture. You have to sit and relax. Don't work too hard and get fat in front of our TV because that's the American thing to do, right? That cult is killing large percentages of its people, day by day, shortening lifespan, a week here, 10 days there. Right? Our cult is killing its people. But so has every cult in human history. Right? There is a rise and fall of culture throughout history. And the reason is simple, that once people succeed in any sense with any stable pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. Once they succeed, they hang on to it for dear life. Fear of death, fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty, fear of unfamiliarity, fear of overwhelm, fear of thinking, fear of power. We hang on to our dysfunctional cults as they take us down. And thankfully, there's always another cult that initially has some strong points, or at least the promise, that initially leads some good place before it destroys its cult members as well. But evolution happens. And so here's from cynicism, disgust, contempt, horror, pain, and loneliness, right? Let's step back a little bit and look at what happened on the big picture. Some tens of billions of years ago, we're told that the entirety of life in the history of all life was once this big. And now, just a few billion years later, right? 10, 20, 30 billion years, everyone has their story. But in the vastness of time, on the scale of trillions and trillions of years, to go from something this big to a universe that is impossible to grasp in its vast scale is incredible, is the greatest miracle you can possibly imagine. You know, science say, be grounded, be practical. From, one moment there was nothing, and then poof, poof, the Big Bang, and all life moves forward, right? Well, some 4 billion years ago, right, the current story, we were just slime. And now look at us. Now look at us. 200 million years ago, the empathic brain did not exist as an operating system. And now it's dominating 30% of human behavior. Right? 30% of the time, human action is based on concern for the well-being of other people and ourselves. 30%. Now, that's on the uprise, right? 2,000 years ago, the Christian church would allow you to murder a deformed baby unless it was baptized, right? It's not baptized in the name of our church, so it's nothing. Kill the baby, swaddle the baby, wrap it up stick it on a board, hang it on the wall. Right? Well, now look at us, right? Listening to our children's feelings, trying to learn how to be moderately competent at parenting. Murders per capita have come down even as the population has skyrocketed. Intelligence has gone up. Lifespan has gone up. Life has a brilliant track record. If you'd given Warren Buffett slime 4 billion years ago and told him to create human beings, he couldn't pull it off. But life did. Life did. Right? So we can be skeptical of our cults, skeptical of our identities, skeptical of other human beings, and aware of the cruel nature of the reptilian brain. But we can also understand that it kept us alive. It allowed us to join the 1% that have bodies on the planet today. And that out of that reptilian operating system that was once operating 100% of the time, that's diminishing. over the next 60,000 years, it seems, right? It seems like we're on a trajectory towards greater psychic literacy, greater empathy. And so we can trust life in the large time frame to take us from something this big to a universe too vast to comprehend, to take us from slime to fish to lizards to birds to mammals to this body, to take us from the reptilian brain to the rational reptile, and now pushing into the rational empath. We can trust life to be heading in the generally good direction. All we have to think about is whether we're assisting or pulling life back. And when you pull life back, you test it and work out its bugs. So that helps as well. Right? Hackers reveal the flaws in the system and provide a valuable service. Right? The rebels, the cretins, the outlaws reveal the faulty code in our system and allow us to strengthen it. Life has a system, has a plan, and every single part of life is playing a role in life, moving towards complexity, moving towards intelligence, moving towards grace, moving towards consciousness, moving towards an expanded possibility field, probability field, and actuality. Life can be trusted to do what it's been doing for tens of billions of years, regardless of what you or other people do along the way.